Mia φορά και ένα καιρό στην Ελευσίνα. It's time for our story. There it is. This is the place. This is the Cafenillo. My in-laws Cafenillo place was here. It was a nice Cafenillo actually. My in-laws run this place for more than 20 years. It's in a great spot actually. And this is where I started to work actually. This is my only day job here in Greece. And this was full of chairs. It's a great spot actually for a Cafenillo. Back then, the platea was just done. And these trees were very, very small. But it's a great, great spot. Great, great spot. And this is where I arrived here in Greece. When I arrived, this is where I worked for a very short period of time. So the story is that my in-laws passed down the business to me and my wife. And the idea was for this to be the main source of income. So I will come here every single morning and I will open at 6 o'clock in the morning. I will be here by myself, serving coffees, serving chipuro, serving beers, drinks. We try to change from a local cafenillo or a very traditional cafenillo to a cafeteria, which was a terrible mistake. Because of that massive change, we lost a lot of customers, of course. One of the main reasons why we wanted to change is because we did not want to just serve alcohol and Mercedes, which was, again, a terrible mistake because my mother-in-law was the main person in this business. My mother-in-law was the one that cooked the Mercedes. So as you can imagine, if you know anything about the Cafenillo culture, is that once you have a certain clientele, they come here every single day and they're drinking the same thing at the same time. They're expecting the same type of service. And I did not understand that back then. We were just, being very naive about it. And there's a lot of mixed emotions as I'm recording this video here and from this spot, because a lot of things happen here, both good and bad. For example, the first birthday of my daughter, Fedra, was celebrated here in this space. Okay, it was a Cafenillo. We have already changed it. We were running it ourselves. Of course, we were not making any money. But we celebrated the first birthday of my daughter Fedra here in this spot. We had the chairs. We did a party, and we had just recently arrived from the UK, and it's hard to imagine that my daughter Fedra was born in England, and a year later we were here celebrating her birthday and going through a midlife crisis, a big time.
That it wants everybody in the camera. Well, actually, the reason I bought so much is because I want to start buying food for her to get to Greece, and because, instead of saying to them, bring 10 boxes or something.
And this spot is where we actually try to make a living, to earn a living and to make things better. But we did spend a lot of money here. We lost a lot of money, I should say. Because it was a very traditional Cafenillo. It was run down. And that was the charm of this place. This is the charm that a lot of traditional Cafenillos have. And, once you redo it, and once you start offering different things, like Fredo, cappuccinos, and all of this, then it changes the atmosphere. It changes what an actual traditional Cafenillo is. And a traditional Cafenillo is just el único café, some drinks, some beer, some chipuro, uso, and frappe, and this kind of things, and just keep it very low key. And that was the way this cafeteria was run by my in-laws, very, very successfully. Outside here we will have a TV that we actually purchased when we changed the cafeteria, so it will be a nice atmosphere of just watching whatever was on TV at this time. And of course, as you can imagine, whenever there was a football or there was a game, it will be jam-packed of people watching TV out here. Inside there will be another TV as well. Knowing now the culture very well, I can see that they were just laughing at us, and with a reason. Like thinking like, what is this guy coming here from England, bringing back the daughter, right, and pretend that they're going to change the whole cafeteria into a cafeteria, and they want to kick us out and bring some new customers. And back then the law has changed, so you were not allowed to smoke indoors, and obviously it was not imposed in many places still in Greece. Now it has changed. In 2024, as I'm recording this, it has changed. You won't see people smoking indoors. And if you see it, it's very, very rare. It still happens, but it's very, very rare. But in 2010, when I moved here and we were changing the business in 2010 and 2011, we still had customers smoking inside, and it was still a transition. And I tried to enforce that heavily, because my daughter will come here to hang out with us, and she was just like a baby, and we wanted to enforce the law, and we got a lot of backlash because of that, as you can imagine. Like, who am I to just say to these people that that you cannot smoke inside the cafeteria, right? They've been doing it for like 20 years, and here I am, an exeno, a foreigner, trying to run a business that I have no idea how to do, and telling them that they cannot smoke indoors anymore. You can imagine that did not go down well, and it was impossible to impose. Things went so bad that my father-in-law almost lost his life in this place. Let me show you. So at the back, it's a little bit windy now. So this was not here a few years ago. So my father-in-law was going to go at the back to change the gas for the cooking, and this was not here. He misstepped here. He went like that, like jumping from one place to another, and he went all the way down. He broke both of his legs. He almost died in that fall. And this happened just on a regular night. You have to understand that when we took over, we still had a little bit of help from my father-in-law and my mother-in-law, and that happened in that transition. And what happened is that my father-in-law fell down and broke both of his legs. He could have died by falling down in that place if he had hit his head. And he was in bed for like a year, on a wheelchair. So I went from being in a cafeteria to taking care of my father-in-law, taking him to the hospital, and with a wheelchair, try to help him. And and then my mother-in-law came here to help the business with my wife, and at the same time I tried to take care of my daughter Fedra, that it was still very, very young. She was 1.5, 2 years old. And that's where I became a stay-at-home dad. And I was coming here less and less. Eventually, I was not performing well. I was deep into, I hate to use the word, but I was like a little bit depressed because of what was happening. And my father-in-law being in this accident and me taking care of him, like I literally took over the car, for example. So I'll have to go and do the shopping for the cafeteria. I'll have to take him to the hospital whenever he had appointments, and I will have to just move him, and the recovery as well. I will pick him up from the house and bring him here to the cafeteria so he can slowly regain his life somehow. Like not to work, but to actually bring him here with a wheelchair in the wheelchair, get him out of the car, put him in the wheelchair, and put him inside the cafeteria so he can just chill out and socialize, so he can regain some type of normality in his life. Not to work, because it was impossible for him to work, but just to like actually integrate him back into normal life. And at the time, I was just deep into depression because I was doing that, taking care of my daughter. My wife was in there as well, and you know, it was a big transition for us, like from England to being in this, which is a beautiful place. It's a beautiful platilla. Okay, this is a beautiful place, as you can see, and to have a business there that could potentially work for us, you know, and it did not happen, right? So I was living in a weird life because I was going through a dark period with this scenery in a beautiful location. Even though Elefsina is not like this, the whole of Elefsina is not like this, you know, this is a beautiful spot. And you know, this was difficult years for me, and what you see on my videos now is just something that is quite recent, really, meaning that, you know, we moved away from Elefsina in 2020 in the midst of the pandemic, but we stopped working here in 2013 or 2012, I should say. So it's many years ago, but still there's a massive scar, there's a wound, really, in terms of what we lived here in this place. A lot of hours I spent on this place, a lot of hours. Like I said, I will show up early in the morning, I will bring my guitar and try to play a little bit of guitar, but mentally I was in a bad place. My marriage was suffering quite a lot. It was it was one thing after the other. Like the thing that really changed everything was the accident that my father-in-law had. We thought that was a close call. Everybody got affected, you know. The whole family got affected by this. I realized that you know, we have control of changing. We have the power of changing. So the same way that you have the power to make a wrong decision and change the course of your life, you have the same power to do the opposite. And I have done both. And this place represents a bad decision where I actually bent reality, or I changed the course of my life for a short period of time for worse. And it was a very bad decision. It was a very bad thing, that the repercussions and the way everything unfolded after that decision and going with it, it cost me dearly for years. And that's the lesson I learned from this experience, that no matter where you are, no matter what situation you're in, even if it's your fault, you still have the power to get out of that. You still have the power to change the course of your life, no matter where you are. I will come to this Periquijara with my daughter Fedra. She was very small back then. So that Periquijara is very close to the Cafenillo. So I will come to the Cafenillo, you know, work a little bit, hang out, and then my daughter will be around. I will come here to the Periquijara and just play with her. So it was a nice setting. I know what I'm saying here, it sounds like everything was dark. It was not all dark, but it was certainly a difficult situation in our lives, okay? And there was a lot of blame. I was blaming a lot of people because I have put myself and my family in a situation where I shouldn't have been, especially from the point of lifestyle and how I was going to earn a living. You know, today I know a lot about the culture, and that was one of the things that I did not know back then. I did not understand the culture very well. Nobody told me that cafeterías were this type of places, even though I thought I knew. But nobody warned me that there is unwritten rules in these kind of places. There's unwritten rules when it comes down to the culture. There are unwritten rules that people follow, and you cannot change that, okay? And I did not understand that. I thought that I could change it because I had these ideas that, you know, hey, in England things work like this, or in the States things work like this. You just close a shop, you just open it again, and there you go, it's gonna be fine. But the cultural aspect of it was what was missing in my situation. Nobody warned me about that. And I was blaming a lot of people, including my mother-in-law, my father-in-law, my brother-in-law as well, for years. And I have forgiven everybody for this, at least internally, because it was my mistake to listen to other people's opinions of what should I do with my life? And the only reason why I listened to them is because they were Greeks, and they were, you know, they had good intentions, and they wanted, you know, from my mother and father-in-law, what they wanted was basically their daughter to be around, you know, because we were just a family that just had a newborn baby, and I wanted the same thing. And obviously I didn't know anything else, and I wanted to get a life here, but the missing link, or the missing thing, was, how am I going to earn a living? My mistake was that I listened to others in terms of doing what I should have done. So the major lesson in this story is that I should have never listened to others. I took others' opinions as the gospel, like this is the way I should come here to Greece. And I felt like, you know, I literally, you know, I did not know what to do. And that was a terrible mistake, because there were other ways for me to come here to Greece, and there were other ways for me to do things. And, you know, you have to understand that me and my wife, we had a life in England for many, many years, and we were very independent. So for us to be here, especially for my wife, that she grew up here in this town, for her to be with her parents now, and flat broke, working in their business in the Cafenio, it was a massive backstep in her life. And I can only imagine how she felt. Our marriage suffered quite a lot because of it. I became the weakest link for many, many years. Like, because as you can imagine, I became a stay-at-home dad, unemployed. I did not speak the language well. My wife had to leave this place to go and get a job in Athens. And, you know, we needed to earn money. And that's how I started to work online. But, you know, it was because of all of this darkness and all of these things that happened here that I started to work online. And I started to work online here in Elefsina. This is where the birth of my entrepreneurial years happened, here in Elefsina, walking these streets. Okay, there was a lot of reinvention that happened in this town for me personally. I reinvented my life in this town. I started to work online while taking care of my daughter. Eventually the Cafenio was run by my mother-in-law and my father-in-law for a couple of more years after we left. When I left this place, I worked so little that I did not qualify for unemployment benefit. Our accountant as well did some mistakes with my paper, so I did not qualify, you know, full stop. So I couldn't even claim unemployment benefit, even though I was registered as unemployed, which was the worst time of my life, because I had to go to an office here in Elefsina and be registered as unemployed, but not get the unemployment benefit. But the status of being unemployed, you know, I've never been unemployed in my life. I've never been fired from a job. I've always had somewhere to work. I've always have something to earn money with. And this was the very first time that I was not working. And even though I did not quit, I was so miserable in there that my mother-in-law kind of like said, you know what, tell Daniel not to come again, right? Like, just tell him just to, it was just crazy, man. You know, like, literally, like, don't come. Like, they actually did me a favor, and it was just my mother-in-law working here again while my father-in-law was recovering, and my wife was working here as well for a short period of time. It was just so bad, man. As I'm telling you this story, I feel like throwing up, because I just go back and relive these feelings of not being able to do anything. And yeah, thinking about money and how to earn a living here in Greece, it became my priority, and it became a real thing. So I was just with my daughter, a stay-at-home dad, trying to make ends meet somehow online. And I became a classic case of unemployed, a father, you know, just like the worst of the worst. Like, I felt so defeated by life. And that's why you see these videos that I do nowadays that are very motivational and very inspirational and talking about my Greek lifestyle, is because I have come from the other side. I have lived that dark years. I've lived a good life in England. I came to Greece with a dream and an idea of making things work. As you can see, this place where I showed you right now, the Cafenio and the surrounding areas, is a beautiful place. You can't say that it's a terrible place. I mean, and it was a nice place. Nice place to work. It was a nice environment. You know, I wish it was not like this, so this story will have a better impact, but it's a beautiful place, man. Right. And yes, a beautiful day today, but this is how I remember it, you know. and it had people in it, and you know, but everything, it was the problem was me. The problem was me being part of this, trying to change it. You know, like I am in the wrong place, trying to do something that is not right. I'm not a guy that is supposed to be in a cafeteria. You know, and if you have met me through these videos, you have seen my philosophy of life in these videos. You know, I am kind of like the same guy that was back then working in the cafeteria, but I was just so new here in the country that I did not know about these cultural things. But I always had this determination and this you know, inspirational aspect to my life, and like moving forward always. I was just in a foreign country, not understanding the culture, not feeling confident about myself either, you know, because when you don't speak the language, you feel a little bit, you know, vulnerable. And, you know, add to the mix that you don't earn money, you feel even more vulnerable. And add to the mix that you depend on your in-laws now for employment, things started to get very complicated, you know. And then when people saw that we were in it, like I was working in the cafeteria, and a lot of people were like, oh, so now you're in it. You know, people were like, hey, that's the way it is. Eche inidulia, someone told me. Eche inidulia. And I was just furious. I felt like a trap. Like I did not sign up for this, but I did. And it was because I was not listening to my own internal dialogue, my own internal mindset, and things that have taken me so far, man. You know, I've come this far to be stuck in a cafeteria, in a oficina. This is not how this story is going to end. It's never too late to change your life. It's never too late to actually turn things around, okay? Anyways, guys, I hope this video finds you well. Thank you so much for the love and support, and I'll see you in another video.